Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. Today we are going to play you an interview that we did with one of Boston's most well-known and admired musicians, Nat Freedberg, who has a new project called Freeloader and has been in many iconic bands over the years, such as The Flies, the Titanics, the Satanics, and of course the Upper Crust. So before we play you that interview with Nat, I'm going to play you a song from the first Freeloader album. This is what I love this song, man. I played this on my radio, my short-lived radio show, and I would play it again if I had another radio show. It's called 10 Songs Make an Album.
Kids
All right, please welcome to the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast, Nat Freedberg. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
How's life been treating you during these crazy times of the last year, I guess we could say?
Yeah, well, it's been actually pretty good for me, like surprisingly. Like I know it's been a time of great suffering for people, but I've had it like really easy. Like I have a nice little house. We got a couple of cats that have been like keeping us fully entertained, and then some. And I've just been making music, and I figured out finally how to record my own stuff at home, and how to remote collaborate with people. And I've been, just jamming out a lot of music during this whole.
That's awesome. Now, I wasn't going to ask you this, but since you brought up cats, you used to have a pig. I think the pig's in heaven now, maybe?
Yeah, the pig is in hog heaven, yeah, right?
So many people mention that whenever I mention your name. Ask them about the pig.
Yeah, I still get people. I live right on a park. My house like just abuts the park. And there's always people like looking through the fence and going, hey, do you still have that pig? And that was like, 20 years ago.
It was that long ago?
I don't know. It was like
wow.
2005 maybe.
Well, that pig was famous. I don't know his name, but a lot of people know about the pig.
Yeah, he was called Pig.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that we could go back a little ways, and I was going to ask, we're going to go all the way back to the 80s now. Okay. I was going to ask you when you realized that you wanted to be a musician, and how that led up to, I think the Flies were your first band. Were they your first band? I could be missing something.
Yeah, I mean, I probably had like a couple of weird things that happened before that, but that was the first actual band that was mine. I don't know how I got into music was just listening to it, and it was the only thing that really reached me and felt real and extremely worthwhile. That everything else was not as directly that just short circuits. Music short circuits right to people's souls, I think. So I was touched and felt strongly in response to listening to the music that I liked as a teenager and as a kid. So
around that time when you did I think it was 82, you had a Flies 12-inch and a 7-inch before you ended up on Homestead. Were there a lot of Boston bands that you were into at that time? Because the scene was really good from the mid 70s to the mid 80s.
Yeah. Well, I came after like a lot of the bands that were big in the
garage
70s.
Bands.
Yeah, because I was in New York for a while, and then I moved back up here in like 81 or 82. I think 82, and so I was in the middle of like bands like the Real Kids and Nervous Eaters had kind of been a little bit before that,
right?
And then there was a lot of kind of weird. Like art rock coming out that I was exposed.
My friend Alvin down the hall was in the November group. So
yeah. I mean, there was bands like art rock is a kind of derogatory term, maybe, but I mean, there were amazing bands like Christmas.
Oh yeah,
Michael Cuddy,
Dangerous Birds. They were cool.
Yeah,
bands.
the Maps.
Yeah, the Maps. Julie Grunwald.
21645. They were just like crazy bands that I don't know if anyone would have ever heard of if they weren't there on the scene. But people were being influenced by so many cross currents of music, that and there were so many smart people around town that it just came out in some crazy shit, and everybody was so young that it had a lot of energy to it. So.
You put out the 7-inch and the 12-inch right before I moved to California, which was at the end of '83, and then after those two things became really popular here, you ended up on Homestead. Was it Gerard that signed you guys? I mean,
yeah, Gerard Kozloy.
Did you know Gerard, or did he just contact you and say, I want to do a record deal with you?
Oh, damn, I don't even remember how that happened, but I just remember driving around with Gerard from place to place.
I'm sorry.
he was a kid. He was really young. I felt old in comparison to him, and I was like 23 or something. So he started really young, and he knew what he was doing, and he just went for it. So
when I was I ran this label called Giant Records in 87, 88, 89. I was at Dutch East India, so Homestead was right next to me. Gerard and I didn't always get along that well, but he was like that. There were a lot of people. He was kind of a guy you loved him or you hated him. I didn't hate him, but
he was strongly opinionated.
Yeah. And but he gave you guys a break, and I know Rob Dimmitt, I think, is who you recorded with, right?
We did. That was one of the guys that we were recording with at that time.
So the Flies lasted for a few years, and after that it was the Titanics, right?
Yep.
And the Titanics were really popular because, I know you started on White Star Records, and then it got reissued by Tang and Emergo in Europe. And I knew about Emergo. But some of those songs, I wrote these down because I love that song, Drag You Down to My Level. But the song Man's Humanity to Man, that was a great track. And I think you actually, recorded that.
I re-recorded it and put it on a solo record I put out a year and a half ago.
It's on my list. You got a lot of stuff, man. You're like a machine. Around that time when the Titanics came out, that was also a good period. What do you remember from that period?
Not much. What do I remember? Well, I just remember, so I guess the scene, at least for me, things had kind of split up into more hard rock, which is what I ended up being in, and then you had the indie bands of the '90s, and the indie bands in Boston was a huge scene that took off, and I was just in the rock scene, which wasn't really in the zeitgeist of the rest of the world at the time. But
there were some good bands, like I worked with the Neighborhoods and the Outlets, because when I worked at Enigma, and I used to come to Boston a lot, and I'm sure you probably hung out at the Rat a lot. Yeah, because that was the place you would go to when you came to town, and you'd go sit at the Hoodoo Barbecue there, and it'd be like people, hey, that guy, all these people from bands. It was such a great time, man. Do you miss it when it was like that, or do you think that all these other things that have happened since then, it doesn't really matter?
Well, it was great, and everybody who was there fondly remembers it, because you're right, there was an incredible energy going in Boston at that time, and it was very localized, and it centered around, it was particularly intense at places like the Rat and the Hoodoo and other places, were just, and it's amazing, like, scenes are like that, I think, throughout history, like huge, massive art movements can be localized to very small places, like Florence during the Renaissance. There was a couple of guys around during a relatively brief span who created something that was big, and like the early British blues rock thing, Clapton,
John
and
Mayall
Page, and Beck, they all knew each other. They all came from within a 40-mile radius of the London suburbs, and that's the way things are. Just scenes that get big, or actually, if you were to go back there was a few people in a relatively small area doing it.
Did you were there a lot of bands that you guys would play with a lot, and you'd like did you ever take a band in New York with you or do things like that? Or I know you did that with the Upper Crust, but what about that far back?
Wow, I can't remember. The one band that really pops out at me is the Bags.
Oh yeah. Well, you stole their drummer. Yeah, well, they were already done, I guess.
No, they ended, and then we were fortunate enough to land Jim Janota, who's like the rock drum god of Boston.
Still is.
Yeah, but they were amazing, and they were also just playing hard rock. And it was, but with a slight tongue-in-cheek thing, But
Rockstar album was great.
But they meant it, It was like so hard and so enjoyable, but also kind of like cool, because you knew they had a sense of the irony of playing that kind of music at that point in time.
Now, the Satanics, that was like basically the Titanics.
It was.
It's the same band. But I listened to some of that stuff, and it's Satan heavy. I don't know how else to describe it. Really hard rocking, you know.
Yeah. Well, that was a concept thing, and so we just made a record, you know, with the Titanics in the studio, and we just recorded the batch of songs that had come out with that theme. It was a joke rock band. But
it got popular around here. I mean, I wasn't living here, but a couple of people wrote me the minute I have been publicizing this show. Ask him about the Satanics. You know, more people ask me about that band this week. Do you find that unusual or?
Yeah, I didn't know that many people.
It's on Bandcamp, so you know people probably.
I put it on Bandcamp.
You put it up, yeah.
Yeah, I actually when I discovered Bandcamp, I thought it was a good place to kind of archive all my old recordings before I threw out all the old tapes. So everything got digitized, and I went through it and put it all on Bandcamp. And then I recently realized that Bandcamp was a good place to put your contemporary music as you made it. And it's a great platform. So I've just been releasing my stuff on Bandcamp.
Yeah, I love Bandcamp. I actually find a lot of bands there. And if I need stuff, you can buy a song for $1. I mean, it's like really, really, it's a great thing. So I asked you about the Clam Diggers, and you said it was guys from Mente?
Yeah, it was Ted Widmer and Mark Mazzarelli from Mente. And
were they both in the first incarnation of the Upper Crust?
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So it was them and Janota, and I think the Bags were still going at that time, but it was a kind of side joke project they had and then me and Dave Fredette,
Dave
from the Satanics, joined up, and it became the Clam Diggers, and we started. It was Ted and Maz's idea, and it was supposed to be kind of. It's always been really hard to explain, but it was like New England surf rock with a. I think the description in the band listing said. New England surf rock with a nod to Satanism.
So there are recordings of the Clam Diggers on the Bandcamp also?
Yep.
I didn't find those. I gotta check those out.
We didn't record like everything we did, but there were some recordings, and I put them up there.
Wow. So one thing I've noticed from just what we're just going ahead here too is you found guys and you played with some of these guys for a long time. Like Janota, you've been with him for many projects.
Yeah, well, there's, once you play with someone like Janota,
you don't want to lose him.
You're not going to find an alternative that's better for playing rock and roll.
I think a lot of people have recruited him over the years because he's ended up in a lot of different bands over the years too, while he's been doing the Upper Crust and stuff. Yeah. So I don't know, you've probably talked about this before and probably a million times, but I still have to ask you, who came up with the concept and the idea for the Upper Crust? Because it was so cool. It just took everyone completely by surprise.
I think when we were doing a rehearsal for the Clam Diggers, we were all walking down the stairs into the practice space in my basement. And I think Janota probably said something like, what if there was a band of like all rich guys who decided to rock? And it just kind of grew from that. And it eventually, I mean, the first costumes are kind of just like, like hunting outfits and, pipes and bathrobes and just anything that we thought might look kind of affluent and out of touch. And
it really shaped up as the years went by.
Because... Yeah, and then it morphed into the 18th century, 1700s, like knee breeches and French Revolution aristocracy type thing.
Do you remember the first show that you played by any chance when you came out with the full gear and everything and how the people reacted?
Well, I don't remember what the first... it would probably be a...
94 maybe, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's when we started. We were playing at like the Green Street Grill in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And
was Lily booking it when you played? Yeah.
Lily Dennison.
Right.
Was
I love Lily.
Yep. And you know, there was like a very enthusiastic response to the band in the early years. Yeah.
Well, probably because a lot of the people knew you guys too, but they were curious, right?
Yeah, people just thought it was like a lot of fun, I guess. So, I mean, we went to L.A. on our first tour, and there were like crowds of screaming kids.
Really?
It was ridiculous.
How did you guys manage to always stay in character? In interviews, on stage, you guys were always in character. How did you do that?
Well, we just figured that that's what we had to do, but it wasn't easy, and we didn't do it that well all the time.
The accents were pretty good, though, I think.
Yeah, they changed, you know.
I know there was a bunch of records and a bunch of, like, you guys were with Emperor Norton, Reptilian, Upstart, lots of success. The 2 TV appearances I have to mention because I watched them both again. The one in Conan, you guys were great, but how in the world was it when you came out and sat with Conan and Larry Holmes is on stage with you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of mind-blowing, but, you know, everyone was so cool that
Conan loved you guys.
Yeah. Well, I think he knew Ted from Harvard, from the Harvard Lampoon. I think they were both on the staff of the Harvard Lampoon for a while or something, and so there was a connection there. So we got, you know, the Old Boy Network got us onto TV. I think was pretty much what happened. I
like the Craig Ferguson appearance more than the Conan, the playing part.
Oh, yeah.
It was like really, both of them were great. But what did people come to those shows? I was curious because you guys were there, or did you play in front of an audience that you didn't really know what was going to happen?
Yeah, that was just a studio audience. I don't think we had it stocked with fans.
When you're looking out at the crowd, it's something like that, and they see you for the first time, it must be a little funny the way they're looking at you, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the average person in the audience was thinking they'd just go to, you know, get a chance to finally be on a TV talk show, and then they probably didn't know what to make of us.
Did you get to talk to Larry Holmes at all, like besides being on the couch with him?
Not much. I wish I had.
The expression on his face. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He didn't know what the hell was going on. That was hilarious, man. I had to bring that up because those 2 things are really good. I actually saw you guys many times, and my favorite show, I remember the show, it was Coney Island High, the Real Mackenzies, and Caged Heat, and I think there was another band.
Oh, damn, man. That must have been a good show.
Great.
The Mackenzies were incredible. They're still playing, I think, are they?
They might be, but I remember that they weren't wearing anything under their skirts.
Under
and they
their
proved
kilts.
It.
Yeah. Of course. If you're going to wear kilts, you can't wear anything. Yeah. That's a crime to wear something under your kilt.
That was 99, I think, that I saw that show happen. But I saw you guys at a lot of shows. You guys were always consistently good. You know, I love the band. And I know the band technically is still together, right? Because you put a record out a few years ago.
Yeah.
The Delusions of Grandeur.
Yeah.
So is this a hiatus, and you think there might be another Upper Crust show, or are you like too involved with Freeloader now to like go back to that?
Well, I'm doing recording a lot of other stuff. So, and you know, after 25 years, it was really hard to continue writing songs in the theme of the Upper Crust, you know, so it was really nice to finally take a break from that and be able to just write anything that popped into my head with any theme or any style.
Did you have like Bon Scott in your head when you were doing this stuff? I mean, were you a big AC/DC fan, or was it just a coincidence that there's similarities?
Well, I think Dave Fredette was a huge Angus fan and a big AC/DC fan. I think he was even in a cover band in high school or something.
Wow.
An AC/DC cover band. So he brought that whole thing. And I hadn't even really been that hip to AC/DC, but I got into it then, and that was kind of one of the main things that was affecting the style of the Upper Crust.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing you guys and then hearing the power rock chords and stuff, it was just, oh man, it was just great. Okay, I wanted to go through your whole past before I got to the other stuff, because you've been really, really busy the last couple of years. I mean, 2 solo records and 2 Freeloader records, right? Now, I have to ask you this. Record number 3, was there a record number 2, or is that a joke?
Well, I was counting Freeloader as record.
Oh, you were counting Freeloader.
Because it was like, I was trying to make 3 records in 1 year. So
wow.
I put out 1 solo record, then the Freeloader record, and then the record number 3.
On those 2 solo records, Better Late Than Ever and record number 3, you did a lot of Ducky Carlisle and Mark Hickox. I wasn't sure who that is, but he's on both records.
Yeah.
Both of those guys are.
Yeah.
And did Ducky actually engineer those records too?
Yep. He recorded and engineered that stuff.
And you had a lot of other guests too, like this guy Kevin Barry. He's pretty good, isn't he?
That guy Kevin Barry's pretty good. Yeah.
Is that like a band that you like will continue to do solo stuff with?
Well, I mean, those guys dropped in. I mean, Kevin Barry and stuff, and a lot of the Tom West on keyboards and stuff. Those guys are just like premier players who were nice enough to appear on those records.
Ducky, you like to work with, don't you?
Yeah, he was really cool to work with, and Mark's an amazing bass player, and they're kind of a rhythm section. They work well together. So me and Ducky and Mark played a lot of shows with Chris Blue on guitar. We played a bunch of shows for a while there before the pandemic. And we were kind of going under the name No Brainer, but I don't know.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was never really official. So.
Yeah, you went in a little stylistic change there. I kind of hear a little bit of maybe like Sun Volt, like alt country kind of style with the solo records. Was that intentional, or did it just come out that way?
I guess it just kind of came out that way. I didn't intend it, but I actually just listened to to record number 3 in the car like yesterday, and I was like, wow, this stuff is like really, a lot of slow songs, a lot of...
It was different for you.
It was really different, and it's not like a good time record, but and there's probably too many slow songs. Listening to it now, jammed together on one record, but if you listen to each song individually, I think they're really good, and they sound great.
Yeah, these records are fantastic for people out there listening. I highly recommend them. You can find them on Bandcamp. Just to mention the titles of the 2 solo ones again, Better Late Than Ever and record number 3. Now, the 2 Freeloader records, I fell in love with The Path of Least Resistance, and I actually played, I always get the title wrong. I always get the title of the song wrong because I want to add the 2 to it. 10 songs make an album.
Yeah.
I played that before you came out, and I just think that song is brilliant. Now, I can't remember if I asked you or not, but did you have 9 songs and then all of a sudden you needed a 10th song?
Yeah. We wanted to make a record, and that record was kind of came together as it was being made. So, and then we had 9 songs, and like, well, this could be a full album if we had one more song. And so, I just quickly wrote 10 songs, make an album, and it turned into a pretty fun song. We got a horn section on it and stuff too.
And then you've got Charles Hanson, great guitar player. Jim Janota, of course. Jim Haggerty. Where's Jim Haggerty from? Is he a Boston guy, or is he from elsewhere? I
think Jim comes from upstate New York originally, but I would have to check.
This is a great band, by the way.
Yeah, but he's just like, he plays with a bunch of people here in town, and we're just lucky enough. He plays with Charles and Jim in the Handymen.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever seen them?
No, I have not seen them.
You gotta check out the Handymen.
Good band.
Yeah, it's just so funny. Like Charles just comes up with a list of like 24 songs or something that
Cover songs?
Yeah, that he remembers from his childhood, and then just sends them out to all those guys, and those guys are good, really good players.
Yeah.
So they quickly learn them. I think they might rehearse once or something, and then they play the show. So there's like inevitably like fuck ups, which just makes it funnier. But they're so good that they nail some of these songs, just the sounds of songs you remember, like one-hit wonders off the radio in the 70s and shit.
Charles is one of those guys where everyone knows who he is in Boston, and you kind of wish he would have branched out a little more than he did. Maybe the Freeloader stuff will get him more attention, because he's probably one of the best guitar players in town, wouldn't you say?
He's definitely one of the best guitar players in town, and he's working on his own solo record now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, like, as we're kind of making this Freeloader, the new Freeloader record, we're kind of making it one at a time. Like,
yeah.
We recorded all the drums at Peter Moore's studio in Medford, and Peter Moore plays in the Handyman too.
Yes.
He's like the keyboard player, and so we had all the drums done, and then I've been recording my guitars and vocals, sending them to Jim Haggerty to do his bass, and then, rough mixing that, sending it to Charles to do his, and this is the whole remote collaboration thing that has been
I can't believe
happening.
you guys can do this, man.
Yeah, well, that's how kind of, necessity is the mother of invention. The pandemic is making people realize that, a lot of shit can get done in ways that traditionally it wasn't getting done. So we're kind of getting the hang of it. And it kind of, the end result sounds like we all went in the studio and made it together.
Yeah. Lou, I had Lou Mansdorf, Malibu Lou. I had him on my show like 3 episodes ago, and we were talking about you guys. So how did you get hooked up with Lou? Because it started with the solo record, and then now you're on RumBar Records with both projects, pretty much, right?
Well, Lou is just such a strong force in the local scene now, and the local scene is, we were talking about the scene back in the 80s and 90s and how cohesive it was, and then it kind of seemed like it got pretty diffused, and and Lou has just kind of emerged as a guy who's a catalyst, and the rock and roll people in town
kind of a resurgence a little bit.
Yeah, they kind of gravitated to him because he's just got so much enthusiasm and so much love for this stuff, and it really is a labor of love for him, and he does it with such enthusiasm and energy that it's fun working with him. It's fun being a part of his label. Someone
like you who's been, you've got such a body of work here. I'm sure it's a labor of love for you. So when you meet someone like that, it's probably a good connection.
Yeah, nobody's getting rich off this stuff.
Yeah, I know Lou's. I give Lou credit. He just sent me a box a few weeks ago, and there was like 50 CDs in it, and a bunch of albums, and I was like, how in the world was he able to release all that stuff?
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy, but he does it.
His short run attitude, I think, is good, because I think in the past, and I'm guilty of this too, you'd want to press him. You'd have to press 1,000. You'd be, I got to press 1,000. And then if you sell 600, you're like happy. But what about the other 400?
Yeah, well, I've got boxes and boxes because I hadn't
digital.
I didn't realize that you don't sell CDs except for at shows, really.
Yeah, digital kind of is what destroyed it, really. I remember around 99 when Napster came out and digital came out, and everyone kind of thought it was a joke, but it really did kind of ruin everything if you think about it, right?
Well, it was definitely a revolution in how things were done, yeah.
We're happy with Bandcamp and everything now, and we're praising it, but wouldn't it be nice if there was like a record store at every corner like there used to be,
Well, there still are record stores. They're just not new record stores. They're just all, vintage vinyl stores.
Would you say that your sales have been affected over the years because of the change to digital?
I don't know. I never sold anything in any numbers.
Really?
So,
Even the
yeah.
Upper Crust?
I don't believe so. Or if we did, no one told me about it. You know, they falsified the numbers and sent me small checks.
I was going to ask you about this because you've been on so many labels, man. I come from labels myself, you know, and I was just curious, out of all these labels on here, I mean, which ones did you like working for, and which ones did you think it was going to be better? Like Emperor Norton probably was the biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, that was just an independent record that had some capital, and they liked the Upper Crust, and they had a lot of enthusiasm for the band, so that was cool.
And Tang re-released the Titanics. Did that Curtis just come up to you and say, I want to re-release it? Or
No, I think that happened as a result of, I think CDs were like, I think it was released originally on vinyl.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, geez, I guess we got to make a CD, one of these CDs. And Curtis was there.
Oh, so it never came. Oh, yeah, of course it did.
Yeah, so it's like, well, let's try doing one of these CDs things with Curtis.
I think I have a cassette, actually, the Titanics, too.
We made cassettes, and we made vinyl, and then, CDs were so new and unfamiliar that we left it up to Curtis.
And I think part of his Roadrunner deal is how you guys ended up on Emergo Records in Europe, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Has that been good? Have you noticed anything from Europe from the release?
No.
I love your honesty.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, do you hope to like start playing out again? I mean, I hate to use the word normal because I don't think if anything's ever going to be normal again.
Yeah.
But if it does get to that, what are your intentions?
Well, I'd love to be playing again. It's like the whole pandemic, I've kind of been really comfortable. I'm really busy writing songs, recording them, and stuff, and trying to figure out the technology of recording and getting a little better at that. And so I haven't missed live shows as much as probably a lot of other people have, but.
I kind of started to cut down the amount of shows that I went to because I started in the early 80s and I'm a little burnt out now. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, everyone's going, geez, I miss live shows and clubs and bars. And I'm like, well, yeah, like I'm 61 years old. I don't drink anymore.
That sounds really familiar, actually.
Yeah, and it's like, do I really want, it was always a matter of like, well, when should I show up? And then you want to miss all the bands except for the one you want to see. And then, when you're.
Hope they go in first.
And then, yeah.
Remember
you hope they go on really early because you're old and you want to get home and go to bed.
I know. Remember everyone used to want that Hollywood slot. They wanted to play late.
Yeah.
Now all the bands want to go on early.
Then, yeah. And it was like, it used to be called the New York Headliner. Yeah. When you'd play in the middle and have bands
3 out of 4, yeah.
Yeah, like it's CBGB's. Like there'd be like other bands that went on after you for the cleanup, just to keep the bar open.
Do you think that we're close to ending a whole era pretty soon because a lot of us are around the same age? And like you go see the Liars, like that was the last show I saw, was the Liars at the Middle East, January of last year. And there was no one under 40 there. I mean, it was like all... Yeah. Don't you think that crowd's going to eventually be gone?
Well, obviously. Yeah. I mean, people...
The real rock people, I mean,
Yeah, like, my Facebook page obviously skews toward older rockers. And, it's almost like an obituary page sometimes. Like, people are dropping now. And
do you think the young people are going to get the torch and continue with the rock?
Probably not, because they didn't grow up with this stuff. We grew up with it, so it's a part of us. And everybody who was on these scenes originally back in the day are still going to these shows and watching the people that they still love that are still around making music.
We've lost a few, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's not going to last too much longer because everyone's going to die.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, well, it's true. I mean, why sugarcoat it, you know?
Right.
Now, right now, I think you guys are doing this thing where a single's coming out like maybe every Thursday or every other Thursday. I'm going to play, when we're done, Gimme What's Left of Your Love. What a fucking great song, by the way.
Oh, you like that one?
Oh, I love it, man. Lou had sent that to me before he released it to check it out. He kind of like said, you think that you would have Nat on your show? And I'm like, do you think he'd do the show? And I was like, fuck yeah. But then I heard that song and I was like, whew. I mean, I loved the first record, Freeloader, and now it seems like you're even taking it to another level.
Well, the original concept for this was, I don't know, I had this idea that I should make a record of like early hard rock style songs, like when hard rock was just getting started and it had a lot of energy, and it was this combination of like, you know, epic, you know, beauty and energy and vulgarity and sleaziness and like, you know, like a song like All Right Now by Free, which is basically, if you listen to the words, it's about picking up someone on the street and going home with them, you know, which actually, you know, probably happened frequently in the early 70s. You know, if you were a rock star, you'd be driving down the street, you'd wave at somebody, they'd get in the car and you go. But, you know, that it's like, that kind of thing is so foreign to the world we live in today.
Yeah, we don't need intelligent songs. We need the dumb songs.
Yeah, so but I still love it. I absolutely love it. Just like this kind of, you know, really just primal energy that is totally politically incorrect.
Was Free like one of the bands that influenced you? When you were like this from the 70s?
Well, I mean, obviously that they were amazing. Yeah.
Did you like Humble Pie and other bands like that as well?
Yeah. Maybe not quite as much, but you know, it's funny. Personal taste in music is weird because, you know, two people that you would think would like exactly the same things have little nuances to what they like more than other things, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you might be home listening to Coltrane and I'm asking you about Humble Pie, right? You just never know. Well, I mean, when you were young, was there a band that came along and you said, I want to do that?
Well, probably the thing that blew me out of the water was Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, because I was just a kid in this, you know, weird little world, and then just boom, it just punches a hole in your consciousness and just goes right to your, you know, animal brain and emotions, and it's like it's being hotwired to something you didn't even know existed. So yeah.
Well, thank you, man, for coming on the show. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to mention that I may not have mentioned? Because I'll give you that opportunity. I tried to cover everything, but, you know, it's hard with someone like you. You got so much stuff.
Well, I mean, we're just going to be doing the Freeloader record as we finish each song coming out. We're going to put them out like every 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Every other week.
That'll extend the project. That's a good idea. Was that Lou's idea or was that your idea?
You know, that was how we talked it out. Yeah. I mean, we'll put out like maybe 8 singles like that, and then put out the whole thing.
What happens if you need a 10th song?
We already got it.
Good.
We got 13. So we're gonna have to probably pair a couple off the album. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
And I appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck in the future, man.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thanks.
There's a line, and it goes right around the block, and they're dying for just an itty bitty bit of what you
All right, that was a lot of fun. You just heard Gimme What's Left of Your Love from the band Freeloader. Nat Freedberg, what a cool dude to have in here for an interview, and I threw a lot at him. And he came back to me with all of it and answered everything. And when you have that many projects and you've written that many songs and you've played with that many people, it's like amazing that he was able to like remember half the stuff that I was asking him. But he did, and he's been a very influential. He's played a very influential role in the Boston rock music scene. Not just Boston, because I saw the Upper Crust, as I mentioned in the interview, down in New York, and it was really one of the best shows I ever saw. It was at Coney Island High. And I also saw them in Jersey and Philly, because when I was working with Caged Heat, way back when Caged Heat actually went on a mini tour with them, so I got to see a bunch of shows. I was doing merch on that tour, and that's a lot of fun, seeing the Upper Crust every night for like 3 or 4 nights in a row. How many times have I told you about Baby Loves Tacos? They're like the best thing to come out of Pittsburgh since Willie Stargell and Andy Warhol. Damn it, they're even up there with Bruno Sammartino. And, you know, I love the people that work there, Zach and John and all those cool cats. And, you know, I like to mention them, and the fact that they want to sponsor my show makes me extremely happy. Because they have 2 outstanding locations in the Pittsburgh area that you can visit. The original hot spot in Bloomfield, and their second location in Millvale, which is this little sleepy area right over the 40th Street bridge. When I went to Millvale when I was living in Pittsburgh, it reminded me kind of like of the Twilight Zone when you went over there, but like Lawrenceville, which is on the other side of the bridge in Pittsburgh, is becoming a really hip area. I mean, there's a great record store there, the Attic, and there's a bunch of cool breweries and places to eat, and now Baby Loves Tacos. Not now, it's been about a year, but it's still their newer location. So it doesn't get much better than Baby Loves Tacos, and as they say, Baby Loves Tacos, where everybody eats. All right, you can support this show on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/twistedrico. If you want to reach out to me, I love getting messages from you at twistedrico@gmail.com. We've got 2 Instagram pages. One is called @BlowingSmokeWithTR. The other is just @twistedrico. There's a Facebook page. There's a Twitter page. There might even be a Tumblr page if Tumblr's still there. There would have been a MySpace page, but I think MySpace is, maybe I don't have a page on MySpace. I'll have to look into that. Not really. Anyway, we've got some other really cool guests coming up in weeks to come. If I can remember them off the top of my head, Curtis Casella from Tang Records is coming back for round 2. Probably going to ask him about the Titanics, who we mentioned in this show, because we didn't get to talk about them last time, and some of the other bands that have done reissues on Tang, like SSD and Jerry's Kids and DYS. A lot of great Boston hardcore bands ended up getting their stuff reissued on Tang, so we'll talk about that. Reverend Hank Pierce is coming back to the show. Reverend Hank did a show with us many moons ago when we were recording down the hall at the other podcast space before I moved in here. And Hank is like a big fan of the show, and he's always got interesting things to talk about, so I asked him to come back on. So he'll be back on. And then I'm really excited about this guest that's coming in a few weeks. Margaret Garrett of Mr. Airplane Man. That's a good one. They're all good ones. But Margaret, I've always loved her music and her playing. She knows how to do the punkified blues as well as anyone that's ever existed. And I'm going to even bring up when she used to work at 1369 in Inman Square, where I used to go get my iced teas and extra lemons in the early 90s when I moved back to Boston, because they're in Inman Square and I used to hang out there. I loved it down there. So we got a lot of cool stuff planned for you for the future. And, you know, I haven't been mentioning this, but we have a YouTube page, a Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico YouTube. With Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico, the YouTube page. You can go there and subscribe, and I would love you if you did, because I'm going to start putting some more interesting things up there. And like little tidbits about some of the shows and things like that. But most of the shows are there. They're audio-only versions, but you can still go there and check them out. And I want to thank Nick Z here at New Alliance East. If you ever need any mastering or things like that done, get in touch with Nick Z. He's easy to find. Does an unbelievable job on the show, and I'd like to see him get some business from this show. So it was a good one. They're all good, and we're going to keep them coming. So till the next time we say goodbye, this is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico, and I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. Keep the rock and roll alive, and yes, we love you, Busy Phillips.
Down at Lakeside after twilight.
So the minute we brought up the Satanics, my mic died. How do you explain that?